This is Tiger Cats postgame on the Ticats Audio Network.
27-22. Hamilton Tiger Cats and their fans going home pretty happy on a lovely Saturday afternoon, now getting into evening. Bubba O'Neill along with Andy Fantuz, and pretty much like we expected, a preseason game with some polish in the first half, Andy, and some correctable things in the second half. But all in all, a victory, and I think everyone's got to feel good about themselves. I'll tell you one thing. This coaching staff have a lot of work to do, because we saw some outstanding play from players that really played their first CFL game.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be a coach trying to evaluate this team, because all four quarters, different players are coming in and producing, and to make those tough decisions on such short amount of exposure and real game time, with really you only have a few days before you got to get ready to go to Montreal for the second preseason game. There's going to be some tough decisions, but certainly you got to be happy with the performance. I love how the team was rallying together. They kept coming back after some negative plays to produce an exciting play and get back on track. Over 400 yards of offense. One downside was 4 turnovers. That was unfortunate, but overall you got to be very happy with the performance today.
On Tiger Cats post game, we'll talk to Coach O about some of these issues that they'll be breaking down I'm sure they'll immediately, once they get back to the facility at McMaster University. We'll interview a player. We'll name a performer of the game. Courtney Stephen comes in to check in for our post-game roundtable. And, of course, we'll review Andy's Car-Star keys to victory. I thought, as I said in the first half, is that I thought we saw contributions from all three aspects of the game. And I think that was the thing that was most impressive to me, is that everyone did something well, I thought. I mean, we could see maybe 3 games in the past where it was just a complete mess. But these guys looked very sharp, I thought.
It looked pretty polished, especially compared to the other preseason games around the league that we've seen in the last few days. A lot of production on both sides of the ball, but even there was not a lot of missed tackles, not a lot of rushers not being touched at the quarterback. The offensive line played pretty well. The quarterback did have to bounce out of the pockets here and there to extend the play to get the ball downfield, but there were some contributions to the running game. I think there was 70 yards rushing, and besides a few drops offensively, they looked pretty sharp, and certainly you could see a lot of potential. And like we already mentioned, coming from many different numbers, jersey numbers, so it's going to be tough to say who's going to be the starting lineup and who's going to make this roster.
Let's go forward with naming our performer of the game, presented by Hercules Tire. Ride on our strength.
We're going to go with Lio'Undre Gallimore. He started off the game with that big 83-yard punt return for a touchdown. He had a couple other really nice returns throughout the game, really getting the crowd excited. And then when he got into the receiver position, had some very nice catches. Had one earlier in the game, but really in that fourth quarter, extended the drive 3 or 4 times, and he just really made a name for himself in short, elusive type receiver, but certainly can make plays both in the return game and in the receiving game.
Just to follow up on that, and that's one of the things we talked about in the pregame, and that you said that when you were talking about the different stages of your career and what you needed to do, for a guy like him, it is when your number is called, you've got to do something.
Yeah, and he did. He did. I mean, the punt return was probably not even top 3 of his best returns, in my opinion, because the blocking was so good on that one. But there were a few where it seemed like there was nothing there, and he was able to bounce off a player's spin and get some extra yards. One time he kind of pulled the dead stop in the middle of the field and then was able to break contain around the outside. The stats weren't there for those returns, but you could see the potential. And when you see that on film with the rest of the return team, they're going to say, okay, if we work a little bit harder for this guy, as they showed on the touchdown, we can really light up the scoreboard time and time again.
someone that would be normally doing exactly what Gallimore did, and that would be in special teams, would be Lawrence Woods. But in a defensive back role, I thought he was really shining.
He was. I had a close eye on him in the first quarter, and he was really in position throughout. I didn't see one time that he got beat, it kind of spotlights with that interception. Brandon Stewart kind of pulled me aside and gave me the proper lingo at halftime, so appreciate him. He zone turned to the ball there because he was in great position and was able to feel the receiver on his outside, look back over his inside shoulder, and then jumped up to high point the ball to get the interception. He also had a really nice hit earlier in the game to a sure tackle in open field. So great to see him take full advantage of his starting role today at field corner.
One of the other players that I think was shining to me too was the entire backfield I thought was played a part. Everyone that stepped in there and carried the ball, and I think I could be wrong here, but based on the players that the Tiger Cats have acquired this season, I think we might see a heavier, if not a reliance, but I'd say more of a commitment to running the football, and we saw that today.
Well, it's hard to say. This is the CFL game. You got a guy like James Butler who can do it all. He can run the ball. He can catch out of the backfield. But you also have all these talented receivers. You have Bo Levi Mitchell. You're going to throw the ball. You're going to run. You have a good offensive line. Who knows how it'll all shake down? But like you said, it was really great to see. To see Butler make the most of his few carries, but Fleet Davis behind him really seemed elusive and was breaking tackles both in the backfield and past the line of scrimmage. And I thought he made a name for himself for his first exposure in this league to really solidify that backup position, at least until Sean Thomas Erlington gets healthy.
6 foot, 213 pounds, and again, he runs a lot harder than that. I mean, he seems to hit that hole really effectively, and one of the guys that I think seems to not shy away from contact. So I was very, very impressed by him. Guys, let's restart and have a look at your car start keys to victory, and I think the overall did pretty good.
Yeah, well, number one was streamlined play calls, and it's hard to say right after the game exactly what was called, but I certainly recognize some of those plays from back when I was playing and when I was under Tommy. So offensively, I saw a lot of familiarity from last year, a lot of simplistic kind of concepts. So I'm going to give that one a check mark. On defense, you're going to see a lot of cover, a lot of man, a lot of cover 3, cover 4, the simple zones and the man, just to let the players play. And we saw that on both sides 100%. And so big check mark for number one.
Number two.
And number two was focus. And this is one thing I said at halftime and again after the game, that I was really excited to see the players engaged that were not playing, and headlining by Simone Lawrence as usual, and Ja'Garrett Davis, who wasn't even in uniform today. But these guys were the first ones, high-fiving, even in the fourth quarter, fourth string, third string, didn't matter. They were all celebrating together, whether it was a big tackle, a sack, a punt return, a big catch, a touchdown. It was great to see everybody engaged and focused, and so that was awesome to see that camaraderie.
Number 3 is a very difficult one to gauge based on the fact that there's so many different bodies, and it's a preseason game.
Yeah, and unfortunately they did not win. It was 4 turnovers for and 3 against. They got 3 turnovers and they gave up the ball 4 times, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, and 1 turnover on downs. So they didn't win in that category, but it was. Yeah, like you said, there are a lot of moving parts there, and a couple throws I think Powell would want to have back that he didn't see. On the first one, he just underthrew McGriff quite badly, but he responded well and ended up with almost 300 yards passing throughout the game. And then the second one, it was a great learning experience because he was rolling to his right. He saw the receiver coming across field, but didn't didn't notice how long the ball was going to be in the air, and the corner came from the other side to pick it off in front of him.
Well, and that's got to be a tough thing for him. I mean, this wasn't even his second preseason game. This was his very first, playing on that big, wide CFL field. A big difference for him. I know he's had, and he's been one of the guys that was actually signed halfway through training camp so far. So a big learning curve for him, from the quarterback from Eastern Michigan that also played at Missouri as well too. So I was surprised. Were you surprised actually that he got so much rope, that they played him so much?
Yeah, I was surprised not to see Schultz out there, and I'm not sure if that was predetermined before the game started, if they just wanted to get a real good look at Powell or not. Mitchell played pretty much what I expected. As soon as he had a good drive and had some cohesion with the receivers, he had that long touchdown drive, I thought he would be coming out, and he did. But to see Powell play the rest of the game was a bit surprising, and but you got a good look at him so they can evaluate.
And let's go back to Bo Levi there in that touchdown drive, because I was so impressed by it, coming off to the 2 drops, and the first time that he had the offense, and then the second possession he comes on there. It's a first down to Tim White. James Butler with a first down run, going for about 12 yards. Then he goes to McGriff for a first down reception, and this after he dropped what probably was going to be a sure 60-70 yard touchdown pass, and then the throw over the middle to Sindani for 32 yards for the touchdown. And I know that we had talked about that Bo's probably going to need someone that he's recognized, or he knows, or he feels confident in, and coming over from Calgary, that's probably an important part for him.
Yeah, you wonder how much of the fact that Bo Levi was here, that it came into play for Richie Sindani to be here, but you could see that chemistry on that play. It was just a simple crossing route, and Bo just classic, just looking off the middle linebacker and then throwing right behind his head in that hole so that Sindani could turn it up before the next zone player was there. It was very, you could see the chemistry was there, and hopefully they can keep building on this.
Well, let's see what the coach has got to say about that. Let's bring him down. We have always on the post-game show exclusive access to the coaching room. Time to check in with Coach O, as presented by Access Storage. Bubba O'Neill along with Andy Fantuz with you, Coach. I guess this is such a tough evaluation process for you. I thought the guys made it real tough for you, because there was some real positive plays out there this afternoon. Coach O not here yet, actually. Maybe the line might have dropped, but we will get him here very, very soon. And again, I'll throw the question to you with the same sort of fact that there's going to be, again, a real tough evaluation process, because there wasn't a lot of negatives. It's easy to evaluate when there's a lot of negatives, but when there's a lot of positives, it's got to be difficult.
It is, and I think the one aspect that most people might not realize is, I think we got Coach O. We'll get back to that.
Yeah. And we have exclusive access to the coaching room. Time to check in with Coach O, as presented by Access Storage. Coach, when we threw to you there earlier, I got to throw this to you, Bubba O'Neill, along with Andy Fantuz. And I think it's difficult to assign, or at least figure out what you're going to see when you break down the film. There was so many positive things that happened this afternoon.
Yeah, I thought we did a decent job of we ended up being in some situations that, weren't ideal. Obviously, things were heavy in our favor. In the first half, we didn't face much adversity, so it's always easy when things are sailing smooth. But, we hit some adversity in the second half, and that's what you want to see. You want to see what our execution is like, what the makeup is, and that sort of thing. So, the positive is, we're always going to celebrate wins. Winning is fun. Lots to work on, but proud of these group of people.
Coach, how important is it to you to see the players on the sideline focused and engaged when they're not in the game, and celebrating as a team, play after play throughout the entire game?
Extremely important, and that has to come from them, right? That's the bond that they build. We can kind of give them the vision, but ultimately they got to execute it. So. It's always a tough deal, especially when you're on the same sidelines and you have that many amount of bodies. It's hard to stay focused, but I thought we did a relatively good job of that. We got, like I said, lots to improve on, but love coaching off of wins.
Coach, was the plan coming into today to get such a long look at Taylor Powell?
Yeah, we knew what we were going to do there, and I thought he came in and did a great job, especially coming to camp late. I thought Tommy did a great job of giving him a package that he could handle. We were able to run the ball late, which takes a lot of pressure. There was a little lull there where we didn't run the ball, but we were able to run it when we needed to. And defense was able to get a stop, and I thought special teams stepped up there where we were able to get a couple returns. But, yeah, Powell was going to see that amount of time the whole time.
What's the process look like from here until Friday for you and the team?
Well, obviously we're gonna let them get their legs back. Like, they played hard. There's no preparation for a game except to play the game, and so we're gonna let them recoup. We're gonna give the coaches time to get the film watched, and then we'll see what practice looks like for the rest of the week.
Coach, is it a little easier for you to evaluate these bodies and especially some of the first-year players in a live game situation as opposed to knocking heads against your own teammates?
I think you're able to get a decent evaluation, especially when the game slows down for them in practice. I think there's definitely players that improved and showed some consistent things, but there's nothing like when it's live. And so you want to see what happens. And, hey, just because they messed up this week doesn't mean they're going to mess up next week. Having been in their shoes, like I told them in there, nobody's trying to mess up. Nobody's trying to mess up. So I was very proud of their effort. Our execution has got to be a little bit higher.
One last one for you. How long before you start breaking down film?
Breaking down what? I'm sorry?
Before you start breaking down film.
Oh, we're gonna wait a couple minutes anyway. It'll be broke down this evening, but I do want everybody put so much time into this. I want them to enjoy it. Some people have seen their family for the first time and whatnot, but hey, the grind has started. We won't shy away from it, but we'll always give people time to enjoy themselves for a little bit of time.
Well, enjoying themselves with your home crowd. Congratulations on a victory. Doesn't mean anything in the standings, but certainly a confidence raiser for the crowd. They were certainly pleased. At least some of the response I'm getting here, they were happy with what they saw today. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Guys. Appreciate it.
Let's bring in our round table, and the guys from the booth, they have now come from the 7th floor down to the 4th floor. RJ Broadhead, Luke Tasker, who just called this game 27-22, the Tiger Cats' victory over the defending Grey Cup champion Argonauts, which got to feel good. And RJ, again, I'll maintain this, and I've said it time and time again, they played better than I thought they would.
The Tiger Cats?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they were very solid. Early on, the starters on defense, Toronto couldn't run the ball. They had trouble passing, so the defense looked great. Bo Levi-Mitchell, he had a couple of precision passes that, to go along with what you said, Bubba, this early, they were fantastic throws, just over outreach hands, landing right into the arms of the Tiger Cats. So I was very impressed. And then second half, we saw a lot of the other guys. But I think for Taylor Powell, having that opportunity with two veteran quarterbacks in Bo Levi-Mitchell and Matt Schultz to get the majority of the football game, if he's going to make this team, he needed that. So, and I thought he was good. He was fun to watch, and 6'2", he's got good size. I think they'll take a long look at him. We'll see what's happening with Jamie Newman, but certainly Powell didn't hurt himself today.
Luke, to you?
Yeah, I was overall impressed, and I think that Ticat fans certainly are pleased. Had a pretty crowded building today for a preseason game, and you've got new faces to cheer for. You just can't help but kind of be a little excited about Bo Levi-Mitchell. It doesn't matter. It was not a lot of football. Even if he would have come out there and played bad, it would have been whatever. He kind of would have easily said whatever, but it was exciting to see him make some really smart throws, to have the touchdown drive. And then, RJ, I think Taylor Powell, I was also impressed, minus a few plays. I think some really calm pocket presence was encouraging to see. You got to work on ball security. You can't turn the ball over the way that they did throughout the game tonight, but I think you've got some encouragement there at quarterback. Special teams, to get a punt return, even though you're dealing with a coverage team that's also in camp, right? They're not solid on their coverage rules yet, and they're dealing with, the minimal prep that you get to do. But a return for a touchdown is a great thing to see, and for Jeff Reinbold to be back in the special teams chair for the Ticats and to have a unit that was able to do that. One thing I'll say on the other side of that is that you had some variations in drive start tonight that were kind of wild, and there was just so many times, both teams really, so many times though, you see the Argonauts starting up towards midfield, and I think that's going to be a point of conversation in the special teams meetings the second week of camp.
one of the things that we're going to focus on, again, is the evaluation process. And let me talk to you, Andy, about that. I mean, the coach talked about he's going to look at some film. Everyone's going to be invested in this. How tough is this going to be to actually look at the film and break this down and be honest about it?
Well, I think we got to realize when you get to this point is that there's probably a few key positions or players that the personnel department's looking at. And so when they go into this game, for instance, if you're trying to evaluate an offensive line, you might be thinking, okay, we need to know how he's going to handle run blocks, pass rushes off the side and the twist, so they can dial into the specific player on these specific plays and really break it down like that. They have questions that need to be answered before this game even started, so they're looking to find those answers when they're watching the film. Let's go down to the locker room and connect with our performer of the game, as presented by Hercules Tire, right on our strength, Lio'Undre Gallimore. Lio'Undre, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Well, first game under your hat now in the Canadian Football League, playing, contributing, scoring that touchdown. Overall feeling after one contest?
I feel great. I feel blessed. Just happy to be back. Just thankful.
Lio'Undre, what's it been like for you coming from Valdosta State and coming up to Canada to play football in the CFL? What's that whole experience been like for you?
It's been a great transition. Just coming to a new country, just learning a different type of football. But Coach O, man, he's a great guy. The teammates, great guy. We stand on the shoulders of the ones that came before us. So we just excited. It just feels good just to be back and be able to help contribute again.
Lio'Undre, I've been at camp a couple of times, and it seems like you have a lot of fun out there. I can hear you talking and chattering. Is that part of your game?
Yes, sir. I just love keeping the energy up. Just letting the guys know I got their back no matter what, and vice versa.
Lio'Undre, did you have the double knee slide into the end zone planned before the game, or does that come right in the moment?
Actually, I did, man. Throughout training camp, Coach O just kept telling us, you got to see it before you see it. You got to see it before you see it. And when I laid my head down last night, I'm like, man, I got to take me one back tomorrow. Like, this is my rookie year. This is big. So I seen it before I seen it.
That's cool.
Tell us about that return, Lio'Undre, what you saw, and tell us about the touchdown.
I mean, that was my third one. The first two, I was just, like, man, I'm going to get open. I just kept believing myself. Like I said, I seen it before I seen it. And, the other returner, Woods, he's a veteran. He assisted me, throughout my whole camp, just telling me how to catch the ball, where to look for the return angle. And right before I went out, Tim White said, you got this one. It's going to be yours. Literally right before I went out. And I felt it, and, my guys, they gave me time to return it, and, we did everything as a team. Complimentary football.
Lio'Undre, one other thing here, too. Obviously, you had some contributions catching the football, extending drives. I'm sure it's a lot to learn, especially in your first year at special teams. Has it been difficult to really just engulf everything in terms of learning the offensive playbook and your responsibilities in the special teams?
It's been a slight challenge, nothing too hard. The guys, the team, the guys, everyone is like a family. Like, these guys help me out. I help the guys. I help the guys who help me. And they really look after me. It's a family. Like I said, we stand on the shoulders of the ones that come before us. So everything is about keeping everyone good. You're only as strong as your weakest link.
Lio'Undre Gallimore, our performer of the game, presented by Hercules Tire, right on our strength. Again, and our interview with Lio'Undre is presented by Access Storage. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, there's a guy, and there's so many of them, Luke, that played their first game today, and they got their first taste of Canadian Football League football. And you were in that position some moons ago, and maybe how did you feel?
Yeah, and the difference for me is I came in mid-season, but these guys, I remember the first moment, and sounds like he's got a good handle on his offensive responsibilities and his special teams. I remember my first game, and I did not feel that way. I remember, really, knowing there was a probability that I was going to be caught, in and out of a huddle, not knowing the thing I was supposed to do. And that game went, fine for me. We ended up losing that game, but I didn't have the mental errors that I was so worried about. But it is hard, man. You come up and there's just so much to learn. And that's kind of even before you get in your playbook. It's about the rules, and it's about the field and the way the game progresses, and then you have to memorize an offensive playbook. So it's a lot, and a lot of the guys that we saw make great plays out there today were, have been going through the fire of their first professional training camp. And like your question off the top, Bubba, I think I was overall impressed with a lot of the young guys.
Let's take a look at the situation of what's going to happen on Friday now. They had a large number. There must have been in excess of 80 guys on the sideline for the Tiger Cats today.
87.
87?
Yeah.
Okay, you're not going to carry 87 to Montreal now, right? So I guess now this is where the job gets really tough, Andy, in terms of whoever they carry to Montreal. These are the players that have to make impacts.
Well, there's going to be certain times that they have to make cutdowns with the league rules, and they're going to carry as many players as they're allowed to carry, I'm sure, and get any evaluation that they still need to do. But once they break down this film, that number of questions I talked about will go from a couple dozen, maybe down to a half a dozen or 10 or something like that. So they'll narrow down that process, and it'll kind of morph into more of a preparation mode for the guys that are secure and are going to be their starters, and less of an evaluation process for everybody, all 87, 90 guys.
I would presume, RJ, that training camp, as hard as it was for the first 2 weeks now that jobs are on the line, it's going to ramp up a little bit starting tomorrow.
Yeah, I was at camp a few times, and some guys looked really, really good, and you could see some nerves out here. I think the first play, Justin McGriff, 6'6" receiver, everybody was talking about him, and they go to him right away, and you know how many thoughts must have been going through his mind watching that ball come toward him, and he didn't make the catch, and they did go back to him, and he made some good plays, so that's great. I expect now that the worst is done, I'm excited to see him in Montreal. I was really impressed with Lio'Undre Gallimore. He probably didn't get the hype of some of the receivers in camp, but I think in this game, he's going to get a really long look in Montreal because the returning's great, but they have Lawrence Woods. And then in the receiving game, he was pretty solid too. He was making things happen. So, maybe depth chart-wise going into this game, there were some people ahead and maybe some other guys moved ahead. Bailey Feltmate, I thought that was a pretty exciting moment that he got a touchdown. That can't be easy going from linebacker to fullback and linebacker to fullback and hey, it's a position the Tiger Cats need.
One last question, guys. Now, especially for the guys that have done this, what's it like in this team situation? You haven't got an exact team yet, but now you're going on the road. Is that a different feeling? Is that something that brings the team together, or is that just stuff that happens in the regular season?
I think absolutely. A road trip with the team it brings a lot of team camaraderie, from everything from just taking the bus to your mode of transportation. I'm not sure if they're flying or taking the train, but just right from there, you kind of like get a different sort of experience and situation with the guys. So you get to know people a little bit more. You get to go to a new city, have some experiences, especially the guys who've never been to Montreal or wherever you're going, just to take it in and just become a little more. Take it away from the grind of training camp a bit and get to know your teammates a little more and create that chemistry.
Andy, and just change that to Luke. It's got to be probably tired of the buffet meals at McMaster and the bed and your roommate snoring.
Yeah, you said it. And I think this trip specifically is a quick one for him. I always remember, though, the first road trip of the regular season. It's really like, it almost feels like a reward with all the guys who made it through camp. You get to go out to like a steakhouse instead of the McMaster dining halls. Nothing against McMaster. No. Great university, and I actually enjoyed our time there, but it really feels nice to all of a sudden now you're in Ottawa or wherever you are and you're enjoying the city with your buddies. So yeah, that's something to look forward to for these guys who are going back to the dorms for another week.
Well, those Montreal Alouettes, they had kind of a crazy, wild 22-21 victory in the nation's capital against the Red Blacks, and they've got a lot of evaluation to do. They didn't play a lot of their first stringers. We did not see Cody Fajardo. I guess in that situation now, we're probably going to see a lot of those first teamers next week.
Yeah, I would expect the second preseason game, and there might be some talk with veterans as well. How much do you want to play? How sharp do you feel you need to be going into the regular season?
Yep, there can be some of that. It depends on players, and certainly Coach O will keep that probably close to his vest as to which guys that conversation happens with, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see a little bit longer time with some of these starters getting ready for the season.
Final word to you, Andy?
Yeah, they have one more chance to show what they have to make this team, and the players who are here prepare for week one, and looking forward to Friday. Can't wait.
Final score, it is the Hamilton Tiger Cats winning in front of the home crowd on a lovely Saturday afternoon, beating those defending Grey Cup champion Argos in their baby blues. 27-22 was the final score. Thank you so much for listening on the Ticats Audio Network. For Andy Fantuz and the broadcast crew, I'm Bubba Neal. We'll be back, as we said. Tiger Cats pregame presented by Greenworks is on Friday, as those Ticats are in Montreal to wrap up the preseason. Thank you so much for joining us. Have yourself a wonderful week.